Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in the studio. How are you going, guys?
Good. What up? What up?
Not too much. And today is just a review roundtable week.
Yep. Unfortunately, I'm getting renovations done at the house, so I don't even have a TV at the moment.
Which is worse than torture.
Yeah, for someone like me, I was just like, might as well just jump off a bridge. But yeah, so at least the next couple of weeks will probably just be review roundtables where we just talk about what we've been watching lately, which for me will be kind of like older stuff because the last couple I didn't even have internet today, which is torture.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we're heavy consumers. There's always something.
Yeah. There's always something I've watched. Yeah, and luckily I've been watching stuff heaps before we had to get rid of the TV, and also there's not really anything on at the cinema that I'm willing to pay for, and I don't know if you guys.
Not really.
So in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably just do a couple of review roundtables.
There's a few things coming out.
I'm always watching interesting things.
Yeah, there's always something
and there's
to
a
talk
few
about.
things coming out on Netflix. It's soon too.
Yeah.
We got the Zack Snyder zombie movie.
Oh yeah,
soon. That might be
Army
worth
of
to
the
talk
Dead.
about.
Yeah.
But there's
always
things to talk about.
stuff to talk about.
Always stuff to talk about.
I think Nathan's got the most to talk about, so you start.
Okay, we'll start with the classic. We watched Steven Seagal's early 90s classic On Deadly Ground.
Classic, quote unquote.
Modern classic. Okay.
We've peaked early, boys.
Yeah. Sorry, also a Michael Caine classic.
Oh, okay. It's a Michael Caine movie above a Seagal movie.
That's it. For context, this movie's on Netflix, and it says high definition.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
They pulled a Amazon.
It's a kind of definition.
It's a kind of definition. It is a definition. I don't know if it's a high. But it looks like they've used AI upscaling trickery to sort of force, I'd say almost substandard definition quality picture into being a high definition picture.
Yeah.
So you can see scan lines and you can see it doesn't look very good, but technically I guess they're outputting it in a high resolution format somehow.
Yeah, I mean, if the source wasn't good to begin with, you can upload it at HD. It doesn't mean anything, really.
So it looked absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But that was part of the charm in a way.
Yeah. There are bad movies that are like best viewed in like VHS quality.
Yeah, and that's what we mostly got. Steven Seagal plays like a sort of a corporate fixer or something like that.
Because I hadn't seen it before and I didn't have time to watch it, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But I looked up the synopsis, and it says a mystical martial artist / environmentalist agent takes on a ruthless oil corporation, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, his name is Forrest Taft. His name is Forrest Taft.
That's such a good name.
It's Steven Seagal's directorial debut, and he wrote the script.
Yeah,
because you guys were describing it to me, and I was like, it sounds like a parody movie.
Yeah,
because Steven Seagal is so unself-aware.
Yeah,
that he does, these movies, and obviously it was like a vanity project.
Yeah,
spearheaded by him.
Look, it's ridiculous. The movie's ridiculous. There's a bar fight. A redneck is being racist to a Native American man, and Steven Seagal wants to put a stop to it, so he challenges the guy to a bar fight. Yeah. Not any regular old bar fight, a slap fight.
Yeah.
So those games you play in high school where you've got to like slap the top of the other person's hand
before they move.
It's that, and the winner gets to punch the other guy once. And Forrest Taft always wins. And it's like really drawn out, like weird, almost Lynchian sort of experience.
It's funny too, because you guys said that Joan Chen is in it, who played Josie in
she plays
Twin
an
Peaks.
American.
Yeah. It's so what do you call it? It's so unself-aware and like unironically silly that it loops back around and becomes a genius Lynch movie.
and Michael Caine is super weirdly aggressive in this movie. Like he's really really aggressive in the best way possible, and it's just weird.
Now, for whatever reason, I guess it was important to Seagal that Michael Caine play an American man.
Yeah.
But, of course, Michael Caine, as good an actor as he is at this period of his career, he can't do the accent. So he rolls some of his R's, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So you have this really strange vocal performance by Michael Caine, and his hair's dyed black as well.
Oh man,
and it's just kind of it's very strange. Yeah.
Oh man,
but it was entertaining.
Yeah,
and it uses practical violence and practical effects.
Yeah, we were talking about the other night, whereas like even those bad 80s and 90s like B movies, like they had like good squibs and like blood, and you don't really get that now.
And like there's a guy in the movie who gets shot with a shotgun by Steven Seagal, and it's gory.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it's a terrible movie, but the practical violence is still better than what we get out of good movies today.
Yeah, we always talk about like even B movies from the 80s and 90s. It's like they had that charm because there's like a practical, tangible quality. They were shot on film. There's a smoky kind of look to them, and now a lot of movies are just kind of dull and flat. And no violence and CG, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and this movie is terrible as it is on paper.
Yeah,
like it has
terrible. It's terrible as it is in practice as well.
Yeah, true. But like at least the practical effects were pretty damn cool.
Yeah,
like there was a couple of dodgy CG.
It's violent.
Like,
when you watch when you watch a Steven Seagal action movie, especially from the 90s, you're like, you just want a dumb violent movie.
Yeah, and like look, the slap fight aside. His karate's ridiculous.
Oh, he's one of those guys he's barely a martial artist.
Yeah, like where he like flips people with his wrist.
Yeah, I don't know where
he's barely an actor.
Yeah, he's not an actor at all.
It's like I say, he's there in the movie to progress the plot forward, not to act.
No.
Yeah, but
like Steven Seagal is definitely the bottom rung of the main, big name action heroes.
But that was interesting.
Yeah, action stars.
Yeah. So the other thing, I finished Goliath finally.
Oh yeah, because you finished the second season, which was disappointing, and then I was like, well, let me know how the third season is, so I know whether it's worth starting or not.
The third season has a more rounded out story, so without spoiling anything, it's sort of like the central conflict of season 3 is solved in a relatively fulfilling way.
Yeah.
So, like, and they're kind of trying to wiggle into solving season 2's problems a little bit by the end. It is getting a fourth and final season, which apparently will tie everything up. Having said that, as a package as a whole, I would still recommend people watch it.
Yeah.
One of James's friends described it as like an alcoholic Erin Brockovich.
Yeah.
Which is a very good way of putting it. And it's that kind of like he always does what's right. He always does like money is secondary. If he can get a profit, good, but he's not driven by a profit.
Yeah.
He's driven by, what his sense of justice, his morality.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Season 3 definitely... It has a little bit of David Lynch to it. It's a little bit weirder.
Okay.
Like, there's sort of like dream sequences and like hallucination sequences.
Is that not something that had happened in the previous seasons?
No.
That's
it's
weird.
it's a little stranger.
It's a weird thing to introduce.
But it works. Like, there's certain scenes, I can't really spoil too much, but there's certain aspects of it which really remind me of like a David Lynch type of show. Not Twin Peaks specifically, but that kind of those David Lynchian elements that I enjoy. We all enjoy in this studio. I do recommend that. I think Goliath as a whole is a very good show. But we'll see what season 4 has to bring.
Yeah, I said to you, like, I'm using you as the guinea pig and to see if it's worth watching. And since they've already announced that season 4 will be the last one, I might as well just wait and then binge the whole thing instead of...
That's also probably the best experience too.
Instead of binging 1 to 3 and then waiting.
Yeah.
No
I would recommend if you can wait till season 4 and it's finished because it's definitive. Like, they've announced it's not like a 6 month sort of, we're finished, got to wrap everything up. This was planned.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, that's good, yeah.
If you can wait to watch it, I probably would wait until season 4 is finished. And also, I finished Shadow and Bone.
Yeah, that's because I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, it looks cool, but there's so much to watch, and like I was just like, is it worth watching?
Pros and cons. It's not that long. It's like 8 episodes.
Is that a pro or a con?
Pro.
Okay.
It tells a story. There's not much fat on it.
Yeah.
It's like 8 episodes, about 40 minutes an episode.
Yeah.
40, like they can go up to like 40, an hour.
Yeah.
But like it's sort of
50 minutes an hour.
40 to an hour. Pro, it looks spectacular.
Okay.
Like it uses that Dolby Vision 4K technology.
Yeah.
If you have a TV that runs with it, it looks really good in Dolby Vision. If you have a TV that supports it.
Yeah.
Like you got your inky blacks next to your really bright lamps.
Yeah.
And like that kind of looks really nice. Nice steampunk aesthetic.
Yeah.
And also like the story, we know what the story is. It has those sort of...
It's based on a teen
It's based
novel.
on its young adult teen novel. It has all those tropes of like a chosen one, a unique magic user defeating the bad guy.
Yeah.
It does have those tropes, but it plays it well.
Okay.
Like, there's nothing wrong with the trope as long as it does it well. Like, you can't escape the tropes.
Yeah. I mean, you can flip them on their head, but sometimes it's good just to have a sort of simple, as long as it's executed well.
And it's executed as best it can be.
Yeah.
I think it's getting another season.
I think it's popular, yeah.
Look, I did enjoy it. It had its issues. A friend of the show, Daniel, is a massive fan of the books. He had other issues with it because they
change things.
They incorporated 2 books into the one show.
Okay.
And he has some issues with how that
they condensed 2 books into one season.
Yeah, they condensed. There's the Grisha-verse books and then the Crow books. And they're separate. They're set in the same world, but they're separate stories.
Oh.
And so
they're not sequel. It's not a sequel. No, it's like in the same universe.
No, they're all set in the same universe, but they're separate stories.
That's interesting.
And they took the Grisha. Half of the show is like the Grisha, and half the show is the Crow books. And they sort of twine them together. Now, I haven't read the books.
Yeah.
But as a viewer, I didn't notice, and it felt natural to me.
That's an interesting thing to do, though.
Yeah, look, for me, it worked.
I hope that the author got paid.
The author was
adapting 2 of the books.
Well, the author was heavily involved in the show.
Yeah, like that's one of the things where I'm like, I feel like a company could very easily do a dodgy with royalty checks this way.
Probably, yeah.
And that was my first thought. I'm like, I hope that was done as legally, ethically as possible.
It would have been because the author was heavily involved in the producing the show.
Like you'd have to option one book and then option the other just because they're set in the same universe. Yeah,
they're separate books.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been fine because the author's heavily invested and involved in the show.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they at least would have approved.
Yeah.
But look, as a viewer who hasn't read the books, it seemed natural to me how they sort of directed the story and the narrative. I wouldn't have known otherwise unless I was told.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. I'm excited to see the second season.
Yeah, I might give it a go. There's just so much to watch. I was telling you before we started recording, I said I got a list of 8 shows that are just coming out this month that I have to watch. That's not including all the other shows I still have to catch up on that have already come out.
Oh, it's torture.
Yeah, and it's so hard to keep up, especially, with what I got going on. And so, but yeah, it's good that you liked it because, I wasn't sure about it. And then I even went to work and a guy was talking it up and saying that he really enjoyed it.
I mean, look, it has its issues, but those issues are really just that it uses tropes.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, you can't get
as long as, I mean, and, I don't mind young adult adaptations. It's just they do have a reputation.
Yeah, no, this is... they do. They do.
So as long as this one doesn't get too, high school melodramatic...
Nah, not really. It's fine.
Which can work in, depending on how you play it, yeah.
No, this it has the budget it deserved.
Yeah.
And it's it has a massive budget, but it doesn't seem that grand.
And it's fantasy too,
and
which we always are like more we need more fantasy.
It's somewhat grounded. Like there's magic users, but the way magic works is they can manipulate elements and stuff like that, kind of like Avatar. But you don't. There's the central sort of conflict of the show is that there is a rift of darkness separating the middle of a continent, and inside that rift, there's evil creatures and stuff like that, but you don't really get a good look at them.
Yeah.
So that's easier on the budget and easier on the CG because it's
especially for the first season, it's you introduce there's something in the darkness, and then later if they get more, they can be like, oh, here's the monster.
You see little glimpses, but you don't see them really really visibly. Yeah. So it's I guess in a way they can still make that look pretty good because you're not really getting a good look at them. It's only things that are moving or
I mean, I haven't watched the show or read the books, but monsters are often the least interesting part of a universe. Like,
and and this works for the show because you're not seeing them directly. It's more of a thing of like you're hearing them, or you're like, and it's more threatening if you're not looking at it.
Yeah,
it's using your imagination to conjure the bad guy.
Yeah,
like in Signs.
yeah, or
Alien.
And the magic
Predator
is fairly
even.
And the magic is fairly grounded. It's like guys shooting fireballs. It's not like nothing. It's very standard, like simple.
Yeah.
There's no Gandalf or like Dumbledore, like
Harry Potter
throwing
wands,
magic. There's no Harry Potter-esque sort of like really wild magic.
Yeah.
Which for the show it kind of works because it feels more grounded.
Especially if you have a complicated world, you don't need to make it overly complicated by having systems people have to.
Well, yeah. I mean,
really think about.
With magic, you have to have some rules. Like you can't just be like any character comes in and all of a sudden they could do anything, because then your whole universe is broken.
Yeah, and again, this way it kind of works well for the show because it's like, because it's so grounded, magic exists and it's cool and whatever, but it's like it can't do everything. You know what I mean? It's like you have one thing.
Yeah.
And it's like you can, you can control fire, you can shoot a fireball.
Yeah, you were saying is like each person's magic is based on one element.
Yeah.
Like
So like one person can sort of like manipulate wind so they can like push ships to go faster.
Yeah.
Or someone can throw fireballs, or like there's like the bad guy can control darkness, or like one of the bad guys controls darkness rather. And like, the main character can manipulate light. And it's like, it's simple, grounded, sort of it is fantastical, obviously, it's magic, but it's it's not offensive to being like, well, this is ridiculous. It's like that the way they have it with one person controlling sort of one aspect of an element. It's sort of it's not as sort of, there's not one guy who walks around being like, I am God, like I will destroy everything. I have all the
I'm sure
powers.
they introduced that character who's like, I can do all the elements.
Yeah, but like there's still an element of danger, you know what I mean? Because it's like, even if you have magic and you're powerful, it's like, well, you can't do everything. There's still an element of, you're still a man. You
can wield that element, but you're not like
a superhero.
You don't have super strength or.
So I like that about it.
Yeah, that sounds cool. You were describing to me, and I was just like, "Oh, it's like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but like in a steampunk universe." And you were like, "Oh, it's kind of like a Carnival Row-esque, a little bit."
Kind of, it has that feel to it. Yeah.
Did you guys watch His Dark Materials?
No, but it's on my watch list.
I have the books. I still haven't read them. Apparently, they're good.
I started reading the first book. I watched the first 2 seasons of the show, and I enjoyed the show. I feel like there would be some similarities because it's like a young protagonist in a magical world. There's some steampunky kind of things, but that's a good show too. Yeah,
but no, like I'd say give it a go. It's only like 8 episodes, and it rounds out. I'm not sure if it's been renewed. I know it's done extremely well for Netflix. I'm not sure if it's been officially renewed. I'm sure it will be.
I haven't seen an announcement, but it seems like one of their shows.
A flagship show.
Yeah. With the amount of money they would have poured into it.
And it rounds, like, the central plot of the first season is rounded out nicely with, like, some hints of what they could do in a second season. Yeah. But, like, if it gets cancelled, it's still worth a watch because it still rounds out.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Like, it can still be viewed as a 1-season show. You know what I mean? I think that's all I've got.
Yeah. Callum, do you want to go?
Yeah. I've been watching a few movies lately.
Yeah.
I started off with Carlito's Way, starring
Al Pacino.
And Sean Penn as well, who I think is actually almost the stronger actor in this film because he sells it more. There are certain scenes where...
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but... that was like...
Oh no, Al Pacino is always good.
Yeah, no, but it's like it's later Al Pacino, so it's not as good as earlier Al Pacino. Yeah,
and because there are some scenes where Al Pacino seems kind of tired's the wrong word, but he doesn't have energy.
Yeah.
Where Sean Penn, on the other hand, carries that energy for him.
Yeah.
Because Sean Penn plays a cocaine addicted lawyer who like helps up the mob elements in the city.
Yeah.
Like he's like the fixer, if you know what I mean. Like, like that trope of the lawyer who's on the take.
Yeah.
And the story revolves around Al Pacino plays a guy called Carlito, referred to in the movie as Charlie, who gets out of jail after doing some time because he was a heroin dealer.
Yeah.
And essentially, Sean Penn's character, what was his name? Julian?
No. I'm looking up. It says Kleinfeld.
Kleinfeld, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember his first name,
Yeah.
but Jules. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway,
It doesn't
it's
matter.
immaterial.
Yeah.
He gets Al Pacino out of jail a bit early by doing some evidence related
Yeah.
whatever.
Shenanigans.
It happens before the movie, so who cares? And Al Pacino is determined to essentially stay out of jail. He wants to lead a clean life. He wants to go and sell cars
Yeah.
in like South America
Yeah.
somewhere.
He wants to stay away from the drug
Yeah.
trade.
And anyway, he, of course, because story, he gets pulled back into the underworld. He ends up running a club, and there are colourful characters coming in and out.
Yeah.
But essentially, the big drama in the film is Kleinfeld gets involved with a gentleman in prison who's an Italian mob boss, I think. Yeah, he is. And he says, "You need to get me out, or I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
And so they have a plan to get him out, and Al Pacino gets forced into helping him.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I knew it was Sean Penn because I saw like on the cast.
Yeah.
But he does such a great job. He doesn't look
He
like
looks
Sean
so
Penn.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
He there's that character in GTA Vice City who's like modeled after the character in Carlito, Sean Penn's character. The dodgy lawyer, coke addicted lawyer. Yeah.
But the reason I want to talk about this film is because the scene at the end, it's one of those movies where it has the start at the end of the
Oh yeah.
yeah. So it starts with Al Pacino dying or getting
Yeah.
shot, but you don't know if he dies at the start.
Yeah.
It's just him getting wheeled away.
Yeah, and then the movie happens and you see the end.
But the end sequence is in a train's in Central Station or whatever in
Grand
New York.
Central Station.
Yeah, and oh man, such a great scene from start to finish.
Yeah.
The tension
oh yeah.
is
you know
incredibly
Brian
high.
De Palma was like working his way up to that with Untouchables and like that's like that was he's working up towards that.
Yeah, just an incredibly tense scene.
Yeah.
And like there's that scene where Al Pacino is fighting off the bad guys while he's going down the escalator.
Yeah.
And that was great. A lot. And the
He's-
train, he's moving through the train carriages, and there's like the people
Yeah.
in the way. And it's like done almost in one take, and the
Yeah.
tension's so great.
Is Carlito's Away the one with Viggo Mortensen where he's in the wheelchair?
I don't think so. It could be, but
he's
maybe I
like,
missed
my
that.
dick don't work, man. Do you remember that bit?
Maybe.
I'll look
Maybe,
it up.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
But,
it is.
I didn't. If that is the case, I didn't notice.
I mean, Viggo's such a good actor, you probably didn't even
He's a
recognize
chameleon.
him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no.
Um,
Like, I really like Carlito's
Yeah.
Way. Oh, it is, yeah. My dick don't work. He's in the wheelchair. But yeah, I like Carlito's Way, but it always felt like it's like the less energetic, less powerful Scarface.
yeah,
Like it's De Palma and Al Pacino back again. It's like a, Latin gangster.
I actually haven't seen Scarface.
Oh wow!
It's
You
on-
should
it's on my
watch
list.
that.
It's on my list.
You should have watched that before Carlito's Way.
Well, they're like two separate sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So I can understand it being less energetic because the frantic stuff's already happened. Do you know what I mean? Like you've already had
but
the
that's
drug dealing
not-
side
yeah.
of things, and I'm like, this is about the man who wants to get out, who
out
wants
of
to
the life.
slow down.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, no.
But yeah, I can say if the movie is less energetic as a whole, I can see that as a criticism.
that's fair enough.
And then I moved on to Ronin, which I had seen. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. There was a
Oh.
bunch of these movies which I saw in the 2000s that
Yeah.
I like forgot about, and
Yeah.
then a certain scene will come up, and I'm like, oh, I remember now.
Yeah.
And for Ronin, that happened pretty early on, actually. Ronin, of course, stars De Niro. What would you call it? His middle period?
Yeah.
He's like in his 40s or so.
I mean, it was like
50s.
late 90s, so
Yeah.
it's not like peak
Um,
De Niro, but it's not like sad grandpa, bad
Yeah,
grandpa.
yeah.
What is it? Naughty grandpa, whatever the naughty
and
grandpa.
Ronin-
is doing.
Ronin revolves around a bunch of mercenaries who are trying to retrieve a MacGuffin case.
Yeah.
And so I saw jokes on the internet, what's in the case? And they're like the same thing that was in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. My theory is it's uranium because why not?
Yeah. Nuclear launch codes.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Anyway, so it's an action-packed film, great thriller, great action sequences.
It's one of the best like action thrillers.
Yeah, great driving sequences.
Yeah. Amazing car chase.
Yeah, and one of the actors refused to have a stunt driver. And the director's like, I don't want to see any brake lights. So yeah, I'd seen it before, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, it's an incredible movie.
I really enjoyed the rewatch.
Yeah.
Like, picking up little bits and pieces. I think, like you said, it's one of the few movies where Sean Bean doesn't die.
Yeah.
So that's nice. It's a win for Sean Bean.
The cast is incredible as well. It's got so many great actors.
Yeah, it's stacked.
Yeah.
Really stacked.
Such a good movie.
Yeah, it was really clever action sequences featuring De Niro, like the when they're in the hotel and they're taking the photos.
Yeah.
And he makes the gunshot sound by making the one of the boards fall outside the hotel.
Oh yeah.
So he can get a picture of how much people are actually packing.
Who's the
muscle
undercover? What do you call it? Not secret security. Yeah. You know what I mean.
Muscle,
the bodyguards. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that one. And then the film I finished watching last night, which for me is a huge one to talk about, is Only God Forgives, starring the baby goose.
Yeah, that's a good one.
By Nicholas Winding Refn of Death Stranding fame. Yeah, that's it.
He lent his likeness.
Yeah, not his voice,
Not
which
his
I
voice,
thought was strange.
No. Well, Guillermo del Toro did the same thing.
Yeah,
His likeness, but not his voice.
They're
not actors, so it makes sense.
So this movie just, again, for me, just reaffirms that Bangkok's a scary place.
Oh, look, I've never been, but yeah, like there's all sorts of stuff going on there. I'm sure that you wouldn't want to get tangled up in.
Yeah, there are some underbellies you don't want to explore.
Yeah.
And I think Bangkok's one of them.
That's true of most places, but yeah, like any Asian country you don't want to get caught up in the...
Any country that has the death penalty for being found with a minuscule amount of any
drugs.
substance. It's a country you want to stay the hell away from its underworld in general. Stay away from all underworlds, kids.
Yeah.
But that's it.
But anywhere with a triad or a yakuza or an equivalent... Scary.
Yeah. So yeah, this film.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I'm sure. You know what we're talking.
We're
about.
joking.
This film essentially revolves around it's a crime movie basically, where a family of criminals.
There are like American expatriates living in Bangkok, right?
Yeah.
They're
so
like a crime
Julian,
family.
the main character, is played by Ryan Gosling, and his family run a Muay Thai, like a boxing / mixed martial arts gym. And it's essentially a front because they're actually a drug running family. That's how they make the majority of their money, is running drugs in Bangkok, which is an incredibly dangerous field of business.
Mm.
And essentially the story it's a revenge plot because one of the characters, Julian's, Ryan Gosling's brother, essentially...
Is it like a rival gang kills his brother or something?
No, so what happens is his brother murders a little girl.
Yeah.
And
his brother was into some...
The antagonist, if you want to call him that, of the movie.
They're all antagonists.
Yeah. The policeman. I don't know the character's name, but like the chief. The chief essentially finds the brother and he's like, look, he murdered your daughter. He to the father.
Yeah.
Do what you want with him.
And lets him kill him. Yeah.
Lets him kill him, and then it's like a one eye.
Eye for an eye.
Eye for an eye kind of story.
Yeah.
And what I love about this film is Ryan Gosling has almost no lines.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds bad.
I don't...
He has 17 lines in the whole film.
I don't remember... I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he had more lines and Ryan Gosling was like, no, I'm just not going to say anything. Yeah. And Nicholas Winding Refn was like, that's great.
Yeah.
What I love...
Because it makes it seem like he's kind of damaged in a way.
Because like one of the things I love about this movie is like hearing the stories about how Ryan Gosling and Nicholas Winding Refn were just so in sync.
Yeah, no,
and
they basically... I wouldn't go so far as to say Gosling co-wrote the film, but he was executive producer, and it was very much exploring as they went.
Because Nicholas Winding Refn, like, because I'm a huge Nicholas Winding Refn fan, and like he obviously has that style of like very stylish neon and very slow and sort of not a lot of dialogue and very kind of weird. And Ryan Gosling apparently was just so on board with that, and he would suggest things, and that would make so much sense that other actors would probably just run.
So this film got panned, and I kind of understand why.
I understand why.
No, it's a tough film if you're not interested in unique and experimental cinema, because
look, it's a hard movie to like, but that's why I like it, because it's
awesome.
Yeah.
But like the problem is it's a very incesty kind of film.
Oh yeah.
Because the relationship between the mother and her sons is a very strange one.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like at the...
Should you watch Goliath? Season 3.
No,
that's why there are dream sequences.
but, go on, James.
Oh no, I don't want to spoil it, so I
Yeah.
won't say what I was going to say. But yeah, I remember Ryan Gosling suggested something that his character could do to his mother.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. No, but
I just love how weird it is. Like, the
that's
weirder
the thing.
the better.
I'm watching it. I'm like, this came from. I'm like, I'm not surprised it came from a Danish director because I've seen some Lars von Trier movies. I know what goes on over there. You know, what I mean?
I know what goes on in Denmark.
Yeah, that's it. I've seen Dutch films. You can't torment me. But yeah, so what I found very interesting was because they're working in Bangkok, there were certain parts where they weren't allowed to film or they weren't like at a certain time.
Yeah.
And they couldn't bribe the guards because the guards wanted too much money. So keep on. This is just what I read off Internet Movie Database. Someone invited Ryan Gosling and Refn to go to a movie festival.
Yeah.
And they were like, sure. And the movie festival paid them 90 grand, which was the amount they needed to pay off the guards so they could finish making the movie. The guards, the policemen or whatever.
Yeah.
But the antagonist of the film, I thought, was a very striking figure because he just has this.
I love the.
He reminds me of Nick Cave with the suit.
Oh yeah.
It's a very Nick Cavey suit.
I like because like the police
wears.
chief. The police chief is. I remember reading Nicholas Winning Refn would lean over to the actor, the Thai actor playing.
Say, you are God.
Yeah, who playing the police chief and would just whisper in his ear, "You are God." So he like played his character that way.
Yeah,
I also like how the movie is very, like it embraces Thailand. Like the police chief is just singing karaoke.
That's what I was going to mention.
I'm like,
next.
that's just such a weird like.
After really violent scenes, it cuts to him in like the police bar, and like I know we've dropped the term Lynchian already in this review, but I'm watching this. I'm like, this is bizarre.
Yeah,
this is straight up surrealist filmmaking that you would get from like David Lynch.
Yeah, it's like the candy-colored clown from Blue Velvet, where he just starts singing to.
Yeah. And so there'll be like a really violent scene, and then the next scene will be the police chief in front of like his men.
Yeah.
And like we really quickly talk about the color in this film. So I read that Nicholas Winding Refn can't see midtones.
Yeah, he's got a colorblind.
Yeah, so when he's lighting his films, and apparently most of this lighting was practical lighting, which is amazing.
Yeah.
When you see some of these shots, to think that they actually made it look like that and it wasn't like edited in post.
I'm
like, amazing.
You can tell when it's in post, it looks like crap.
Yeah. So the colors are really like there'll be like lots of reds and blues right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it hurts my head thinking
it's
about
very
how
saturated neon.
Yeah. But I'm like to get some of the shots to look as crisp as they do, but the lighting looks like it was perfectly planned.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have been.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm like, the amount of dedication it must have taken the lighting crew alone.
Yeah.
Incredible filmmaking.
Yeah, it's great.
But so you get these scenes where the police chief is singing in front of his men, and you get like the different colors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's beautiful. Just it's like a feast to watch.
Yeah.
Which is why I think like a lot of people might not like it, but visually, the movie is like another level.
Yeah, even if you hate the movie, like just visually, it's
because Nicholas Refn he says it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I absolutely agree. In terms of the technical aspects of filmmaking. Yeah. Just
it's
an
very
absolute
well done.
masterpiece. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of his filmography, I don't know if I'd say it's his best, but it's a good movie. I can see why people don't like a lot of his films because I think I like all his films. I love all his films.
The one criticism I would have, and it's not even a criticism, in some aspects you could argue it's actually a strength as well, is that it's not a plot-heavy film. Because
his movies are more about like character and tone.
There's almost no exposition.
I will just say, wait until you watch Drive.
Because you still haven't seen Drive.
It's on my list,
which is insane to me. And I've walked out of this show before when I heard that for the first time.
No, look,
and
I love Drive.
You have to watch Drive, one because it's incredible, but two because that's the Ryan Gosling, Nicholas Refn meeting. You know, the first time they worked together.
But yeah, no, I was saying that there's very little exposition. There's like no narration, really. The main character doesn't have many lines. So a lot of people think it's light on plot. And that's one argument I can see why people would make that argument, because a lot of the story is told physically.
It's also what's the word I'm looking for? Where you tell something through like
It's shown,
yeah, but it's also like implied through like symbolism.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that sounds pretentious as hell,
but it is.
and
in this case,
Nicholas Winding Refn can be very pretentious, but I love everything he does. Like, give me more, hook it to my veins. I don't care.
The other scene I wanted to talk about that really struck a chord with me was the hyper-violent scene in the club where the policeman murders one of the characters. But because of how Lynchian it was, you got all of these beautiful women sitting there, and he's like, "Close your eyes, ladies."
Yeah.
And then he like tortures this guy.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it goes like to the club, and he's singing again or whatever. I was just like, I'm like, damn, this is just awesome.
Yeah.
Just to watch. I'm like, it's bizarre, it's strange, it's violent.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's perverse, but it's just great.
No, I love it.
Yeah, just great.
The more weird, the better.
You need to watch a Drive in the next week.
I will.
Actually, watch it this week so we can talk about it next week.
Okay,
and we can relate it back to...
Yeah, I will. But I would recommend to those people who are interested in interesting, unique cinema, and I think like
weird,
James,
ultra violent.
it doesn't. It's like it's a white director who goes to an Asian country and he's like, he's gonna make a movie set there and it's gonna have their culture. And normally you would roll your eyes and be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But he moved his family while they were making it.
Yeah, they lived there.
The movie's kind of there's characters who only speak the native language.
Yeah,
and there's like it's subtitled and everything. It's not like anglicized.
It's not a mainstream action movie where it's like, it's just like they're trying to like lots of expository dialogue where they try to move things forward, and like the Thai characters speak English, and there's so many American characters that everyone just speaks English, so it makes sense. It's like it's just like super weird. People hardly talk at all,
just like in real life.
Well, I don't know,
some people
the
talk
credits in the film are even in Thai. Like the actual,
what I
mean, it's like a Thai film made by a Dutch director starring Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's why I like it. It's not pretentious in the sense that it's not like, a Western director going and being like, look at me bringing Hollywood to you.
Yeah,
he's making like,
this movie is the least Hollywood movie.
That's what I mean. It's a Bangkok film being made by a Western director. If that
it's
makes
a Nicholas
sense.
Winding Refn film.
Yeah,
in Bangkok.
So yeah, would recommend to people who are actually interested in things like cinematography,
if you like
lighting,
weird stuff and violent stuff and neon lights and the soundtrack. My God, like synthy.
Yeah,
like synthy.
Wait till next week when me and James spend 10 minutes talking about the really cool driving jacket that Ryan Gosling has.
10 minutes we'll talk about the whole show. Next week we'll just talk about Drive the whole show.
Yeah, well, that's about me.
So maybe 2.5, maybe even 3. It's hard to keep track of time anymore. I finished reading The Hobbit.
Oh, Mazel Tov. Very good.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a really fun, easy to read
adventure
fantasy. And it's also very funny, which when you think of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and J.R. Tolkien and like
humor's
fantasy,
not high on the list. Yeah,
it's like you don't think like there's obviously humor in the Peter Jackson movies, but you don't think of Lord of the Rings, you don't think of humor. But like The Hobbit is, because I guess it's a quote unquote children's book.
Yeah.
It's not that kind. It's not dumb kids humor. It's like funny old English writer humor.
Yeah.
That comes through. It was published in 1937 or whatever. So kids' books back then were vastly different than however they are now. And also he created an entire language and an entire different cultures and this whole the whole Middle Earth.
Yeah.
With this whole world that he created, this whole universe, just to make I think he just wrote it for his kids, right? Originally.
Yeah.
He wrote it because there were no English
That's Lord
fairies. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Did he write Lord of the Rings first?
No.
The Hobbit first.
Yeah, he wrote The Hobbit, and then Lord of the Rings was a sequel, quote unquote, sequel.
So then he said he wrote Lord of the Rings because there were no English fairy tales, but he wrote The Hobbit first, which is closer.
I don't know.
No. We're probably wrong about most things we say about
completely
Tolkien.
Incorrect.
Okay, continue.
Yeah.
We did 3 episodes about Lord of the Rings. And everything we said was probably wrong. But anyway, I really enjoyed reading it. It was really fun, and Then I rewatched the 1977 animated Hobbit movie.
How does it compare?
I had seen it a few years ago, and it was fine. And I rewatched it, and like obviously as an adaptation, it's not great. They had to cut out a lot. It's only like 70 minutes or whatever. But some of the animation style's pretty good.
I thought about purchasing one of the authentic and signed cells.
Yeah, you showed me that.
And boy, I'm glad I didn't.
You don't need that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like some of the animation's cool, like the designs of things. It's like we talked about how Peter Jackson's movies are so visually definitive,
Iconic, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like this was in the 70s, and it's like I like some of the design. Like I like the way Gandalf looks. He looks different to the Peter Jackson version. I like the way Bilbo looks. He looks different to the Peter Jackson version. It still looks really cool and unique. And obviously some of the animation's not great. And obviously it's probably a lot of budget. Animation takes a lot of time and money. But yeah, it's a good fun movie. And then because we've talked about before, the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies aren't very good.
Stay away.
They were too drawn out. There shouldn't have been 3 movies. They wanted to do 2. I think that's even a bit too much. They probably should have just done 1 3-hour movie with a 4-hour extended cut. That would have been fine. They would have had to cut some stuff out of the adaptation, from the book, but it would have been fine. But they had to stretch it out, and there's too much CGI, and they weren't very good. Especially when you compare them to how good the Lord of the Rings trilogy was. But a few years ago, I had watched a fan edit of all the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies condensed down into 1 3-hour movie. It was called There and Back Again. And it was pretty good. It wasn't great.
Was it made by a relatively famous film actor?
No,
you're thinking of the Phantom edit?
Yeah,
Phantom
yeah.
Menace edit. Anyway, so I had seen that a few years ago, and it was all right. It did a decent job of condensing things, cutting out all the unnecessary subplots that Peter Jackson made just for the films. But then this time around, I thought, well, I've heard of another fan edit called done by one or more people called Maple Films, which I'll call the Maple edit. And this is a 4-hour, 20-minute cut of all 3 Hobbit movies condensed, and to make it a bit closer to the books, and to obviously cut out all the unnecessary stuff. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It highlights the strengths of the Peter Jackson movies.
Which are?
Because when you watch the Peter Jackson movies, it's just like you just see the bad CGI and the unnecessary stuff they added in, and it's too drawn out. And you don't see you see the good stuff, but it's heavily skewed towards the bad. So this cut obviously shows the strengths of what the movie could have been if they had just focused on that stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously, like I think the start of the movie is quite good, where they introduce the dwarves and the unexpected party. Like that's real good. I felt this even before I watched the fan edit, but I do really like Martin Freeman as Bilbo. I think he's fantastic. I think he gives one of a really, really great performance. And just the way they interpret the songs from the book. Yep. I really like the way they did the songs, especially the Misty Mountain song, where the sad song they sing to sort of that ends up convincing Bilbo to go on the journey. I think the game of riddles is the best part of the movie, and was also for me the best chapter of the book. The riddles in the dark.
It's classic, yeah.
Yeah, so great, where he's like battling Gollum to
battle
escape.
wits.
Yeah. And there are some other really cool things. The thing with the Hobbit novel is that it was much lighter, much more fun. And then when he wrote Lord of the Rings later, it's a bit more serious, and the effects of the ring start coming up, which aren't in The Hobbit at all. In fact, the ring in The Hobbit is just like a magic ring.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson obviously tried to connect it more to his Lord of the Rings movies, and so there is sort of the temptation of the ring for Bilbo and the corruption of the ring for Bilbo in the Hobbit movies, which I don't disagree with, and I like some of the stuff they did, but it does play with the tone a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where you're like, this is supposed to be a fun adventure with, like, dwarves, and it kind of, you know, but most of it does, you know.
That might be a studio thing too, though, you know, like they might be like, well, we need to connect it more to the existing property.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think, you know, Peter Jackson made a good decision in trying to match it to his movies, but I think in some cases it's like it doesn't match the tone of what they're going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, as the edit goes on, and as you get to the second movie and third movie, which in the edit is like the you know, second act and third act of this one long 4-hour cut, you do see more and more of the weaknesses, because they do have to introduce things just by necessity, otherwise the edit won't make sense.
Yeah.
So they have to bring in things that weren't in the book just so the edit flows. And so you get like, you get things that are just like, this doesn't need to be there. And by the end of the Battle of Five Armies is just CGI nonsense. And thankfully they cut that down a lot. The Maple edit does. So, like,
sounds good to me.
It's definitely worth watching. And apparently there's another edit, which I forget the name off the top of my head, but that's very similar to the Maple edit, but it's even closer to the books and a bit tighter.
Yeah. It's a shame that, like, we don't live in an alternate reality where you can purchase edits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you could go on the internet and like, don't get me wrong, like, the companies would take a cut.
Yeah.
But, like, you could pay, like, some guy on the internet to be like, I want a copy of the Maple cut on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And then they might get a few dollars.
There are,
I mean, you know, New Line or whatever.
There are bootlegs of people put fan edits on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but there's no official.
Which would change the Star Wars scene for.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The
bootleg market for that is strong, for obvious reasons. But I there is another edit which is a bit tighter and closer to the books apparently, while still keeping a lot of the strengths of the Maple edit. So I'll check, maybe in a few years I'll check that out and see if it changes my feelings again. But yeah, it's just such a shame, because Peter Jackson did such a great job with Lord of the Rings, and it's just, I don't think, you know, he didn't even want to direct it. Like, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct it, which would have been great, I think.
That's a different film.
Yeah, and they were supposed to do 2 films, which, like I said, is still too many, but that would have been better. And then eventually, like, he just had to kind of... Del Toro left, and then they had to do 3 films, and then he just had to do it. And then they shot the film with practical orcs, and then he didn't like the way they looked, and then he, like, CGI'd over them. They look like crap now. And it was just like a whole mess. I don't think his heart was really in it, even though he's such a fan of the source material. But yeah, it was an interesting journey, and I've started reading Lord of the Rings for the first time. I'm up to the chapter where they've met Tom Bombadil, which is quite interesting, because the start of the book is, you know, Bilbo's going away, or his birthday party, and then he disappears.
Well, yeah, you're now in unfamiliar waters.
Yeah, it's like, that's very similar. And then Gandalf comes and gives Frodo the ring and tells him about it, and that's a little bit different, but mostly the same. But then from then on, it's quite different, because the journey goes into
interesting directions,
different direction, and Tom Bombadil obviously is not.
I mean, we talked about this on the review when we talked about Lord of the Rings, but there are certain things I can understand taking out of the book for the film.
Yeah.
You know, like not including Bombadil in the film was a good decision.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But,
like, reading the book, I'm really enjoying it, because it's like...
It's different,
It's different, but also I'm like, I'm so glad he cut all this out, because it's not necessary to the flow of an adventure film.
Yeah.
Not saying it's...
No, yeah,
you know,
different formats. Different formats,
yeah,
exactly.
In a book, you can...
Take as much time as you need, yeah.
You know, that's the whole point of writing a book, is like, you can introduce things late in the game, or explore things, talk about a character's history for like 3 pages.
How far into Bombadil's chapter are you?
They've gone to his house. they've had dinner with Goldberry.
Yep.
And they've gone to bed and they've gotten up the next morning, and I don't think they've departed. I think they either just departed or they're about to depart.
That's
again.
such a the dinner scene's really great because they're like, hey, can you look at this for us, Bombadil? And they show him the ring.
Oh yeah, he did that part. Yeah, and he like tosses it up in the air and he
He's
flips
like,
it on the table.
He's like, this is okay, I guess, and gives it back.
I think like
it's the One Ring, and he's just like, whatever.
What's interesting is like because before I had read the novel, when I thought of Tom Bombadil, I thought he was even more ethereal. Like he just pranced through the woods and talked to them and then disappeared. And you're like, wow, who's that guy? But in the book, it's more Tolkien-esque, where it's like, no, he invites them in. He tells them stories. They eat a lot. Food is very important to the hobbits especially, but just like Tolkien's writing.
Yeah.
And then there's Goldberry, who's like, well, she's like an elf queen, but she's not. And it's like,
she's like,
what's going on there? And then it's like, and he talks about how he's like older than the most ancient things, but also he's just a guy who's not in charge of anything. He's the master of the land, but he's not. And I'm like, Tolkien, what level are you on? I like what?
Yeah. So he, from my understanding, is he represents mystery in its purest form, because there are some things which are not to be explained.
Yeah. Well, but when we talked about that before I read the book, I always assumed it was more ethereal, like more mystical. But it's so not. He's
physical,
It's physical, and it's like very English, and it's very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where after I finish the book, I want to read one of those Cliff Notes things where it just dissects.
I would buy that book.
Yeah, where it dissects. Like this is what Tolkien was saying. Like, I mean, because Tolkien had extensive notes.
Yeah, he did.
That were, I think they were published, or at least
parts of them. Yeah,
they've been.
What's great about Bombadil is there used to be a theory, which I personally don't believe, that Bombadil and the Witch King like the same guy. I don't believe that.
Bombadil and Sauron, or Bombadil and
the theory I read was the Witch King of Angmar.
Oh, okay. So the Ring Wraith.
I don't believe that myself. I think that's
no, because
completely
Bombadil
wrong.
wouldn't be beholden to anything.
Yeah, there's just some dude had a big thesis.
Then he would have snatched the ring and turned into a ring.
I agree.
Wraith.
But there is a mystery there, because at the end of the book, Gandalf, one of the things Gandalf says is like, I have to go and talk to Tom Bombadil now.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm wondering, it's like, is Gandalf like, what are the implications of this, of destroying the ring?
I mean, obviously,
and the only person who might have wisdom higher than the gods is Bombadil.
Yeah, which obviously I haven't gotten to the end yet, so it'll be interesting to read that passage and see how
it's only one. Yeah, it's only like you don't actually get to see that conversation. That's completely hidden frustratingly hidden from view.
Yeah. Quickly before we go, I also watched Invincible, the Amazon.
Ooh, I've seen the first episode.
It's pretty good ending, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
look, I was a little bit like, what? Like, why did Omni-Man do this?
No, oh, don't spoil it.
No, I'm not going to spoil it, but just like there are things that happen, and I'm just like, why did these happen?
But that's because you're watching the show and you're like, oh, this is a cool superhero kind of show, and then it ends and you're like, oh, I have to watch every episode to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
It was that and it's a good, obviously, like I just said a few minutes ago, animation is very time consuming and expensive, and so the show it looks fine, but it's not great animation. It's not super. Studio
but the
Ghibli
story seems
epic.
to be, from what I've seen, the story's being told well.
But that's what I'm saying is the animation is of a standard quality. Not saying it's bad or anything,
it's
but
acceptable.
But what's really interesting about it, I think, is the story and the characters, and there's a stacked cast.
J.K. Simmons plays Omni-Man.
Yeah, J.K.
Stephen
Simmons,
Yeun plays Invincible.
Sandra Oh, Gillian Jacobs, Mark Hamill, Zachary Quinto, Jason Mantzoukas, like the list goes on. Like
I
Walton
like
Goggins.
I like from what I've seen. I like the fact that this show, even though it's animated, it can take a breather. It can sort of it can slow down.
It's animated, but it's done in a way. It's like they're like 50-minute episodes. It's done in the same way as any other premium cable or streaming show.
Which I appreciate. It's not like oftentimes I'll see an animated show and they'll try to be like as big and bombastic as they can, because it's like we can get away with things we can't do in live action, blah, blah, blah. But this show, from what I've seen so far, I appreciate that it takes those moments to slow down, have a character moment here and there.
Oh, it definitely has the time to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, being based on a comic book, that being animated, they can probably get away with more than they could in a live action. Also, I mean, obviously they'd have to condense some things, and, you know, the end does feel a bit rushed. But
it earned its R rating.
Oh, yeah, it's super violent. But yeah, like if you like The Boys, I'd say watch Invincible.
It's on Amazon as well.
Yeah, it's the same. And even though it's animated and you might not be into that or might not take it seriously, like it's definitely worth. It's an adult-oriented superhero deconstruction of the superhero genre.
Yeah. Don't let your kids watch it.
No, yeah, and it's really fun too. Like it does that thing, that great balance of like we can deconstruct superheroes, show their flaws, I like how they show collateral damage of like people dying when aliens attack a city or whatever. They can show that side of things, but they can also have like fun, cool superhero stuff, and humor and fun as well. And also like how the superheroes are like obviously different takes on superheroes we know and love. There's War Woman, who's obviously Wonder Woman.
The Red Rush.
Yeah, there's Red Rush, who's obviously the Flash. You know, so it's like...
And there's Aquaman, who's actually a fish.
Yeah, he's a fish man.
Yeah, there's a fish man. And he's just like a giant walking fish. He just shoots water. It's
but it's like... I like how you've got those, and it's like, well, that's obviously just a way to have those. But it's like, no, they're actually kind of interesting. And they do different things. So, yeah, I'll be interested. I hope they do another season.
Oh, it's been making waves.
I saw an image.
I think it'd been renewed. I can't remember.
I saw an image of one of the showrunners, and they put, this is how far, they had like an omnibus edition of the comic.
Yeah.
And it was like, and there was like a bookmark, like an inch or two, like maybe 3-4 inches into the big book. And the book was massive. And he's like, this is how far we are in the story right now.
Okay, good.
So I'm hoping, they've got a lot of room to work.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does go... You know, Amazon, they've cancelled a few things, but unlike Netflix, they seem to let things go for at least a few seasons. So, yeah, fingers crossed for another season. I'm really looking forward to that. It's a good show. Check it out.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Yep.
That's all the time we've got for tonight. Thank you for listening, everybody, to another episode of the Tuesday Review.
Yep.
We'll be back next week.
Rate, review, and subscribe. It's important.
It does things.
Also, very quickly, one of our listeners, Elise, who has been a big supporter of the show for many years, has started her own podcast with a couple of friends. It's called You Can Fix That in Post. So if you like this show for whatever reason, check that show out, because it's basically like a more condensed, better, less rambly version of whatever we're doing here. So yeah, check that out, and I'm sure you can subscribe to their social media too. Yeah, it's a good show. I've listened to it. They do like focused episodes on different things. So yeah, check it out. They did one about the Alien franchise, one about vampires. Yeah.
Well, good. You can catch us on Spotify, Shout Engine, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll see you next week. Adios, cousins.